Rounding out this week on ITG with the college football expert Phil Steele. We're going to get his thoughts on that matchup between the Mountaineers and Sun Devils and a whole lot more here today on ITG.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
With special guest, Phil Steele.
Author of the College Football Bible.
He can see things before they happen. It's a Jedi trait.
All you gotta do is bet on the winner and you'll never lose.
Mountaineer Nation.
You are in the gun.
Hey, a real pleasure being on. Thanks for having me on the In the Gun podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the In the Gun podcast. I'm Schuyler Callihan. That is the signal caller, Jed Drenning. We've got Phil Steele Friday here for you. Just a couple left. Actually, just one more after today. Maybe we can sneak Phil on. We've done it before during bowl season when the Mountaineers go bowling. So we're just throwing that out there, speaking it into his existence here. 2 more wins. I know we can say one game at a time, but we can look at it like that. So we'll see what happens, and maybe we'll get Phil on. We'll see. But at least 2 more times here with him here on ITG this season. Before we get into recapping our picks from last week, a shout out to those who make this possible, starting with JR and the fine folks at Toothman Ford. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. They do a lot of good work with WVU and the NIL side of things, so make sure you help those who help the Mountaineers and help this podcast. To Rick Lewis in Fortis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed, make sure to visit fortis.us.com. To Johnston Equipment on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. You can go check out their website at JohnstonEQ, that's with a T.com. They have new and used inventory. They stopped by the tailgate a couple of weeks ago with Wes and had a good time. So glad to hear that. Hopefully I'll get to meet them in the future. And to our latest edition of the ITG family, it is the Book Exchange. Get all your Mountaineer gear and WVU apparel at the Book Exchange. You can visit either of their 2 locations at downtown or Evansdale on Patterson Drive. Be sure to use that In the Gun 20 code for your 20% savings. We've got True Blue coming up next week. We've also got the holidays lurking in the background. If you want to get some WVU gifts before Black Friday and you're happen to stop near the Book Exchange or near the Book Exchange, go in there and use that gun to get you at least 20% savings. So, Jed, let's go ahead and kick it off with last week's picks. I know I didn't do too well in the Big 12 pick last week, but I'm interested to see how I did last week because I completely forget what we even picked.
Actually entertaining. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Last week, prop number 1 was we knew we had 2 aggressive defensive coordinators against 2 young quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
So we said, which defensive coordinator will blitz the opposing freshman quarterback more? In other words, at a higher rate. Will it be Robert Livingston of Colorado, or will it be West Virginia's Zach Alley? I picked Zach. You picked Robert Livingston. The answer, Robert Livingston in 31 dropbacks by Scotty Fox blitzed him 10 times. That's 32%. Zach Alley in 49 dropbacks blitzed Juju Lewis 20 times, 42%.
Yeah,
and
I
of course,
felt like
sacks.
that was a pretty clear one.
Of course, the 7 sacks were, we had some of those sacks without blitz concepts. Good job by the defense there. So that one went to me. Question number 2. Will Cam Vaughn have a third down catch, because he entered the game with just 3 third-down catches. So we were wondering, is that something that will finally give? I said yes. You said yes with a touchdown, which, nice little icing on the cake for you. The answer is yes, but didn't convert for a first down, but he got the question right. And he also dropped one on third down.
Yeah.
So there was that. But he did have a catch that wasn't a conversion, but it was a third down catch. So technically, we both got the question right. And then moving on to number 3. Which freshman quarterback will total more yards from scrimmage, passing and rushing combined? Will it be Scotty Fox of West Virginia or Juju Lewis of Colorado? Passing and rushing combined, who will total more? I picked Juju Lewis. You picked Scotty Fox. Ready for this? Answer: Juju threw for 299, and because of the sacks, rushed for negative 39, 260.
Oh, wait, that's going to be really close.
Scotty Fox passed for 202, ran for 58, 260. Nobody wins.
Wow.
They
You got
both were exactly at 260. You talk about a prop hitting. Whoa.
You're going to have to start building your own buildings out there in the desert, Jed. Goodness
Yeah, I know.
gracious.
How about that?
That is
How about
crazy.
that?
I mean, yeah, we talked about Juju's arm talent and all that, but he just could not run away from that pressure. And that first question you had, that was interesting because it felt like they were just living in his lap all day long. And I know Rich and Zach have both said that they probably missed a handful of other sacks. I think they maybe exaggerated to 15 or 16, but I mean, they could have easily had another 4 or 5. And he found a way to make some things work. He's going to be interesting for them, I think.
I think he is. He's a slippery little playmaker. And when you pair him with those wideouts that they have, interesting things can happen. But yeah, I think that was one of the big differences of the day is we never let him get settled in. And they obviously
Yeah.
came in hell-bent on throwing the football, but they never let him get settled in. And I think that was critical to our efforts. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That and the fact that we, did just enough to corral the run game and make them more one-dimensional. But yeah, great job of the defense. But Zach, that was actually the lowest blitz rate Zach's had in a Big 12 game since 37% against BYU. So by Zach's standards, he didn't dial it up that much.
Yeah.
I mean, by most people's standards, he did, but by Zach's standards, he didn't. So that was intriguing too, but it was enough to obviously have an impact. He had a strategy, he had a plan, and that plan worked.
Yeah, it sure did. And that might be ITG history too, by the way, that we've ever hit something like that where it's a dead even tie, 1-1. I don't know if we've ever had that, but we'll see if Jed can do it again here later in the episode. We'll get our picks after Phil. So hang tight. We'll get to a commercial break, and on the other side, we'll have Phil Steele in the building making his picks for this week's matchups.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
Back in the gun, Schuyler Callihan, Jed Drenning, and we are now joined by the best in the business. It is Phil Steele. Phil, welcome back to the program, and feel free to promote anything you got going on the website.
Hey, I appreciate that, Schuyler. Well, the Phil Steele Tour remains red hot. The selections went 4-1 last week. The quick hitters another 3-2 week. And if you go to the Phil Steele Tour right now, it's up at philsteele.com. You get yourself 4 selections and 5 quick hitters this week, all absolutely free. So just head over to philsteele.com and take the Phil Steele Plus Tour and get yourself 9 free selections this week.
And trust me when I say this, as somebody who is a Phil Steele Plus member, you can lose yourself in there for an hour or longer. You really can. Because it's more often than I'd like to admit that I do. But
get in a rabbit hole.
So keep it up, Phil. Yeah, keep doing our work for us. But okay, let's jump to the top 25. We're going to start off with a battle of ranked teams. Number 21, Iowa on the road at number 17, USC. USC rebounding from that loss against Notre Dame with a couple wins in a row. It feels like this is kind of a critical game for Lincoln Riley. They're favored by a touchdown ish. Meanwhile, Iowa is trying to rebound a tough loss at home to Oregon. What do you see playing out in this one in the Big Ten, Phil?
I think it's going to be a great game. And I find it tough to go against either squad. With USC, they're a legitimate playoff contender. If they win out, they will be in the playoffs if they win out. And they've got the skill player advantage. You look at Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane, Lake McCree. They definitely have the size and speed on the outside at receiver. And I love the way King Miller's running the football. And Jade Maeva having a really good year. Now, Iowa's got the advantage when it comes to defense. And also special teams, a large special teams edge here. And I like the way that Gronowski is improving on a weekly basis. Remember, at the start of the year, he was banged up, and now he's starting to get fully healthy and taking command of the offense. So I can make a case for Iowa to pull the upset. I can also make a case for USC to win this one by a couple of scores, because I think if they get ahead and take Iowa out of its game, they could turn it into that. For me, it's just going to be a great game to watch this weekend.
Bill, top 12 matchup in the SEC. Number 11, Oklahoma on the road at number 4, Alabama. Obviously, the Sooners coming off that massive win on the road at Tennessee. Alabama has been red hot really ever since that opening loss to Florida State. I'm really interested to see what John Mateer does down the stretch, because in 8 games, he's got 8 touchdowns, 7 picks. Obviously, the injury didn't help at all, but he's got to play a little bit better, I would imagine. Then for Alabama, how about Ty Simpson? Just 1 interception on the year. It's incredible to see the growth that he's made. What do you see here between the Sooners and the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see out of John Mateer down the stretch, Schuyler, is a much improved quarterback. He's going to look like he did against Michigan early in the year, and I think they're going to have him run the ball more, and I think he'd be a more effective passer as well. Each week that the hand gets a little further away from that surgery. And the key to me in this game is going to be watch that Oklahoma defensive line. I think that defensive line against Alabama's offensive line, which has really struggled to run the ball. Last week, they only had 56 yards rushing, 2.2 yards per carry against LSU. And if they can slow this down and put some pressure on Ty Simpson, I think Oklahoma has a shot here. I think it's going to be a really good game. Alabama hasn't been getting a lot of margin. They've been covering their games, but by like a point or two with some late scores. And I like the way Oklahoma lines up at the line of scrimmage. So I'm going to take the Sooners plus the points here, even with Alabama playing with revenge.
Okay, how about that? So now, Phil, let's jump to Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. ESPN Game Day is there this week. You have number 9, a top 10 Notre Dame team on the road against a ranked Pitt team at number 22. Interesting matchup, despite the fact that Pat Narduzzi's trying to play it down in a way that only he can this week, if you heard his curious remarks. But here's the parts of the matchup that intrigue me the most. Pitt, number 1 in the ACC and number 3 in the country against the run. Really, West Virginia, of course, had their way running the football against Pitt, but not many other teams have. If Jeremiah Love can't get untracked, CJ Carr might have some opportunities. The way that Narduzzi goes about his business defensively, he puts his corners on Highland, he gives you opportunities, he gives you chances, and those playmakers on the perimeter for Notre Dame might have a shot. Do you think this is going to turn into maybe a battle of the quarterbacks with Notre Dame coming in as kind of a chunky favorite?
I like the Irish here, and unfortunately, I wish Narduzzi wouldn't have made those comments, because those are my exact same thoughts. If you look at Pitt's schedule, their only chance of making a playoff is to win the ACC. And do they have a shot at winning the ACC? Absolutely. If they beat Georgia Tech and Miami of Florida in the final 2 games, finish with just 1 loss this year, I think they have a great chance of getting to the ACC. Pat Narduzzi's best year ever was the year they won the ACC, and this time he'd be rewarded with a berth to the playoffs. So this is a game that doesn't mean anywhere near as much as Georgia Tech and Miami of Florida in the next 2 weeks. And Notre Dame just dominates against ACC foes. They are 18-5 or 19-5 against the spread whenever they take on an ACC team, and they're just a team on a roll. Love the way the defense is playing. They're holding opponents to 113 yards per game, below their season average. The offensive line, one of the best in the country. They've got Love and Price in the backfield. CJ Carr nobody talking about him, but he's got 18 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions this year. So I think and also one other factor, I think there's going to be a lot of Notre Dame fans on hand for this game. So I don't think the crowd is going to be as heavy Pitt as you would think. So add it all up, I like the Irish to win this one. They have to win, or they're not going to make the playoff. Pitt can lose this game and win their final two and still make the playoff.
Yeah,
We
one
wouldn't
quick
think,
correction
trust me.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't think it would be heavy Pitt. There's an old saying, there's 4 teams that can sell out that stadium. Penn State, West Virginia, the Steelers, and Notre Dame. One of them's not Pitt. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jed, I think that's actually a neutral site game. I don't think this is on the road for
Yes,
Notre
yeah,
Dame.
that's right. Yeah.
Anyways, back into some Big 12 action here, Phil. We've got Arizona at Cincinnati. It's that situation again that we've talked about a couple of times this year. A team coming off a bye, off a loss, back at home. You have Arizona on the other side coming back from a huge, or not a huge deficit, but they had a crazy comeback at the end there against Kansas to get the win. It feels like a tough setup here for the Wildcats to go on the road here. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was listening to Satterfield's press conference. He hit it right on the head. The Utah game was their 6th straight game. They had to travel across the country, play in altitude, and play it at 10:15 at night.
Yeah.
So the situation really favored Utah in that case. And as it was, you look at the final score and you say, well, it was a blowout. But yardage-wise, they were only outgained by 53 yards. So they actually played a decent game, moved the football on a really good Utah defense. So I think we're going to see a much different Cincinnati team this week because, as you mentioned, off a loss, off a bye, at home, playing at basically 9 o'clock in the morning for Arizona, which is coming off a big home win last week, a comeback win that they needed right at the end. And now they've got to travel and play early in the morning. And I think Cincinnati's the better team to begin with. Plus, the weather's going to be a little chilly for those guys from Arizona. It's not going to be bad. It's probably going to be high 50s for this game, so that's not too bad, but still a little chilly. But add it all up, I'm going to take Cincinnati in a much better situation than they were against Utah. I think you hit that right on the head.
Yeah, you checked all the boxes there, Phil. Flying across the country, kickoff after 10 p.m., playing in altitude. The only thing they didn't have to do was do it on a short week on a Friday night, like West Virginia did in Provo. So we relate. We relate. Yeah, that's the same thing I thought when I looked at that Cincinnati Utah game. But meanwhile, let's go to Kansas State on the road in Stillwater against Oklahoma State. Chris Kleiman's crew's frustrated. Obviously, it's not been the season they would have hoped. Coming off a tough loss to a very good Texas Tech team, a blowout loss at that, 43-20. Here's my question for you. They're laying a huge number in Stillwater, as you would expect. Typically, when you have teams staggering down the stretch, the way Oklahoma State does, you often see them kind of rise up for one battle that's kind of above their weight. Do you think Oklahoma State has that in them to surprise somebody down the stretch and at least play well and be competitive? And if that's the case, could this be the game or no?
I guess it's a possibility, but I think the one thing I would look at in this case is Oklahoma State is a transfer heavy team. I mean, all these kids came in here. I would say 70% of the team is transfers that came in this year, some of them after spring, and now they've got nothing to play for. They're probably trying to figure out where they're going to play next year at this point. And I don't know if they can pull together as a team and have that type of performance down the stretch. Now, Kansas State, last week, the Texas Tech game, I had it on one of the 12 TVs, but I watched the game start to finish, and I said, I'm going to watch it till it turns into a blowout. It didn't turn into a blowout till about 5 minutes to go in the game. They gave up an interception. They were still within range late in the game, so they still they're playing well. It wasn't a horrible game against Texas Tech, even though the final score was, and I thought they played a decent game. So I think K-State's still the better team. Should be able to go in here and win, but I am a little leery about Kansas State laying this many points on the road as well. So it's probably a game I'll stay away from.
UCF and Texas Tech. UCF is probably looking forward to that matchup next week against the Cowboys of Oklahoma State.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't think anybody's going to be calling for an upset here with the Knights in Lubbock. But is there a chance that they can cover this big spread here, Phil?
Well, the thing I like about Texas Tech is that every single one of their wins is by 22 points or more. So when they win by big margins. Baron Morton is now healthy. That's a big thing. I like the way Dickey ran the football last week. That defense, wow. I mean, they can get after the quarterback, and they're tough against the run. They do everything well. And with UCF, they just haven't been the same team on the road. They lost to Baylor by 27. They did play a decent game against Cincinnati and lost to Kansas State big as well. So I just got to say, if Texas Tech, when they win big. So I think they can cover this number here. I'm going to go with the dominant Red Raiders, who, by the way, I thought we were on upset alert last week against Kansas State, but they proved me wrong.
Let's go to Waco. Utah on the road. I still kind of have vibes that I know BYU knocked them off in Provo. Winner gets bragging rights. But I think on neutral sites, Utah still kind of feels like maybe the second best team in the Big 12, to be determined. But on the road against a Baylor team that can score, that's the dangerous part. You know what that Baylor offense can do. But the issue is this: Utah doesn't just lead the Big 12 in rushing, they're number 3 in the country in rushing. They will pummel you with one of the better offensive lines in college football. They're very versatile with an athletic quarterback. And meanwhile, Baylor defensively, we've talked on here before about the problems on the defensive side of the football. 13th overall in the Big 12, but more specifically, 15th in the Big 12 against the run. Is that the part of the matchup that just makes this a bridge too far for Baylor to have a shot to pull an upset?
Yeah, I think so. And Jed, if you go on to philsteele.com right now and check out my Vegas power ratings, which tell you who would be favored over who, Utah, if they played BYU at a neutral site right now, would be a 5.5 point favorite. So Utah is rated in Vegas as the second best team in the Big 12, and it's really not that close. And when you look at Utah, the Joe Moore Award, we just announced their semifinalists, and Utah is clearly one of them. I mean, they got 2 first-round draft picks at tackle, basically. They run the football extremely well, 5.9 yards per carry. They've only given up 7 sacks this year. They are a prime contender to take home the award. I love the fact that, Dampier's getting healthier. But I like the way that now Bird Ficklin has confidence if you have to throw him in, if Dampier gets dinged a little bit, and the offense can still roll. Remember, he was the quarterback the entire game against Colorado 2 games ago, and Utah's got the defense. Holding opponents to 89 yards per game below their average. So I do think Utah's an extremely good team. Baylor's been very disappointing in my mind this year. Now, they're off a good performance against UCF, but and Sawyer Robertson's having a great year. They've got explosiveness outside. Michael Trigg, one of the best tight ends in the country. I'm on the John Mackey Award, and Trigg is right up there for that one. And I like the way that Caden Knighton is starting to emerge as that second back. I think that's the thing that's been missing from their offense. But even though they're at home, I think Utah is clearly a better team, controls the line of scrimmage, better defense. I got to go with Utah minus the points in this one.
We mentioned that Iowa State comeback over TCU a little bit ago. They have BYU this week, who finally, here, Phil, has finally lost a game. We've been talking about it seemingly all year long. Is this finally the week? Is this finally the week? Oh, they ran into Texas Tech and got that first L of the year. TCU, I don't know if I like this matchup either for them because they just haven't been able to run the ball all year long. They're going to have to put a lot on Josh Hoover in this one. What do you think here, Phil?
Yeah, and I really haven't been impressed with TCU in very many games at all this year. Probably, I would say the SMU fourth quarter. Naturally, the North Carolina game, they look great on national TV. But since then, they trailed SMU in the fourth quarter. They got 2 long touchdown passes to Eric McAllister and ended up winning that one by 14. Remember Colorado? They're 21-21. They're punting the ball with 5 minutes to go. Ball goes off a Colorado up man, and then all of a sudden they win by 14. Baylor was a game that was stopped by rain delays like 6-7 times, it seemed. And even the West Virginia game, they really struggled to win that one. So haven't been blown away with them, but BYU off a loss at home, playing in the altitude. I like this team, and they've got the defense. They're just a sound team that has impressed me in a lot of weeks this week. I'm going to go with BYU minus the points over TCU here.
Phil, now for this week's main event in the desert in Tempe, West Virginia squaring off against Arizona State for the first time since that Cactus Bowl shootout, 43-42. The legend of Skyler Howard. He just threw another touchdown as we're speaking here. But as I do each week, I try to find ways or a path to possible success for West Virginia. Here's the path that I've laid out with West Virginia as a heavy underdog, double-digit underdog. Yet again, we've kind of grown comfortable with that so far. But we're a better red zone team on both sides of the football. We're far more efficient in the red zone. Jeff Sims not so much this year in limited time, but over the arc of his career, has put the football in harm's way. 46 turnover-worthy plays. He's had a tendency to do that against the Zach Alley defense. I like to think Zach's going to maybe find some ways to do that. And then finally, here's a reach for you from your own website. West Virginia, yes, might have the 119th special teams unit ranked in the country by your rankings, but Arizona State has the 120th. So we might have a slight edge there. So I'm looking for reasons to be optimistic. Rich has that locker room with a little bit of swagger now, as he tends to do this time of year. They've turned a bit of a corner. So it's tough to get a true read on them just on paper. But what do you see playing out with West Virginia traveling across 2 time zones to take on Arizona State for an early kick?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Jed. If Sam Leavitt was playing and Jordan Tyson was playing, I would take Arizona State by 24 in this game. They've got a hell of a defense. That defense would stuff West Virginia, and that offense would get it done. But as you mentioned, Jeff Sims is a turnover machine in every spot. Georgia Tech, Nebraska, wherever he's been, that has happened. And if that happens again, they're in trouble. I don't like the red zone factor. Those stats that you brought up, those are outstanding. Great research there. So I think my favorite play in this game is going to be under 48. I like that Arizona State defense, and I think offensively, they've got to know the key here is don't let Jeff Sims turn the ball over. Let's run a conservative game plan. Let's run Ridley Brown. Let's run Jeff Sims, tell him to hold on to the ball. And if that's the case, I think this one goes under the total. So my favorite play would probably be under 48.5. But Arizona State's back to the wall with that defense. You got to figure they have a good shot at winning this one, at least straight up.
Phil, I don't know if you heard, but Kenny Dillingham said during their bye week they were going to take the complete week off, which I thought which is a little abnormal. You don't usually hear that. Usually you still have some practices, get some guys that don't usually play during the week or during the game, gets them some action, some scrimmage time. They just said they're taking the whole week off. So I wonder how much
rust.
Yeah, is the rust going to set in here, or is this going to, and maybe a team that says, kind of like Houston did a couple of weeks ago, it's just West Virginia coming to town and you can blow right past them. Is there a chance that happens again, what happened at Houston 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think taking an entire week off like that would lead to you see it in the NFL sometimes after a bye. Teams struggle in the first half. You got to think Arizona State's offense will struggle because that's tough taking an entire week off. So I'm glad you brought that up, Schuyler. Good point. Very good point. And that even helps my underpick a little bit better.
There you go. Hammer it home, folks. Hammer it home. So that'll do it for Phil here on the show. We thank you once again for coming on. We've got one more episode with Phil here in a couple of weeks. We won't have him on here next week during the bye week, but Phil, we appreciate it as always.
Yeah, a lot of fun, and hey, it's been a little better than expected season. I think Rich Rod's doing a hell of a job there this year with what the cards he's been dealt to come out with the 4 wins they have. I think he's doing a hell of a job.
That's awesome. Yes, things are turning. And remember, from last week, 2 in a row, by Lou Brown's definition, 1 more is a winning streak. So we got a chance at that this weekend against Arizona State. Phil, we appreciate it. And we're going to go take our final commercial break. When we come back, Jed and I will make our picks for this week's game.
When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnston Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready.
Low-rate financing available on select Coyote models.
Johnston Equipment, farming made easy.
Get all your Mountaineer gear in WVU apparel at the Book Exchange. They're the locally owned and operated retailer with more than 90 years of selling everything you need for game day and everything else you need to show you're the ultimate WVU fan. Shop at their 2 locations at downtown Morgantown or Evansdale on Pattison Drive, or online at bookexchangewv.com.
When shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter code INTHEGUN20 at checkout for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
As always, great to talk with Phil Steele, getting his thoughts on all those matchups and, of course, the Mountaineers. And we will get our picks now in here as West Virginia makes that trip out west to the desert to take on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Jed, what prop bets do we have this week?
interesting as West Virginia heads to the desert to face Arizona State and those Sun Devils. The last time these two teams met, of course, West Virginia prevailed 43-42 in a 2016 Cactus Bowl that featured 6 different players with 79 or more yards receiving. This week's question is quite simple. Remember, Arizona State's Jordan Tyson, receiver extraordinaire, potential top 10 pick, is out. So they're scrambling around doing different things with their receiver group. The question is, will any player in this game manage 79 yards? That bowl game had 6 different players, 4 Mountaineers, 2 Sun Devils. Will any player in this game manage 79 or more yards receiving? Again, Jordan Tyson's out for Arizona State. For those wondering, Cam Vaughn has done that twice this year. One of them, of course, was when Jaden Bray was opposite him against Robert Morris. Funny thing is, Jeff Weimer hasn't done it, but guess who did last week with 6 catches for 94 yards because of the big catch on the sail route? It's Dior Hubbard. Yeah. So what say you?
Well, first I want to say it is interesting because I did some digging into that game this week, and I remembered the big game and all the big yardage and stuff, but it still blows my mind to this day that Schuyler Howard is the guy that has the most passing yards in a bowl game in school history with 532. Like, that's just insane. With Will Greer, Geno Smith, all those other quarterbacks that they've had, Clint Trickett even, and he's the guy. But back to the question, I'm gonna go no. And I'm almost hesitant because I really feel like if they do throw the ball a little bit more than they did against Iowa State, Shimon Mateer is somebody that I'm really paying a lot of attention to, especially with Jordan Tyson out. He's their number one guy beyond Tyson, and he could be a matchup problem at times. So I'll say no, but I think Mateer could be if there is one.
Of course, Schuyler's talking about tight end Shimon Mateer. We talked in the preview. He's played against West Virginia before and played well. A couple touchdowns for Cincinnati 2 years ago in Morgantown before he transferred to Arizona State. I'm going to say just because the flow of the game, yes, I'm going to play the odds because there are so many different possibilities that somebody could spring up that we just haven't seen yet on either our side or their side because they're finding different guys to target, it seems, each week. I mean, a couple weeks ago was Malik McClain against Houston on the perimeter. They fed him quite a bit. 2 weeks ago against Iowa State, it was more their slot that was helping Mateer out. So I'm going to say one of these teams, yes, 79 yards isn't a huge number. It's a manageable number. So I'm just going to play the odds and say yes. Okay. So question number 2, prop number 2. This is pretty simple. Which Sun Devil will have more rush attempts? Quarterback Jeff Sims or running back Raleek Brown?
My goodness. That's after seeing what Jeff did against Iowa State, you'd think it'd be hard for Kenny Dillingham not to want to run him that much. But I think they're going to have to be somewhat smart here because, yes, you want to win the game, but they're also still in a Big 12 title hunt. And if Jeff Sims gets hurt, now all of a sudden you're down to your third-string quarterback. Raleek Brown is a capable guy. He can run for about 60, 70 yards a game, had 16 touches against ISU. I'm going to go Raleek Brown just for that reason. And I also think, too, I don't know how much this plays into it, but I'm just going to mention it. Iowa State with that 3-3 stack, it's going to have a little bit of a lighter box at times. I don't know that Zach Ellie's going to allow that to happen very much. I think they're going to switch some things up and really muck it up in the middle. So I think that alone will kind of lead to some more handoffs to Raleek Brown.
I'll put it to you this way. When you look at the odd stack of West Virginia versus the odd stack of Iowa State's more married to it than Zach Allie. Zach Allie is, first of all, his pedigree is as an even front. He's technically a 4-down quarters defense. That's his base defense. He just dabbles in the odd stack. So I think from a versatility standpoint, there's going to be more looks than probably what Iowa State showed them. But It's interesting because the two starts Sims has made this year, his carries were 29 and 16. And in those two starts, Brown's carries were 21 and 14. So fewer carries in both. I just think that Kenny Dillingham recognizes what he has in Jeff Sims, yes, but this feels like the game that they want to get Relief Brown uncorked. I mean, he's a very talented guy. I mentioned in the preview, he leads the Big 12 in missed tackles forced with 42. He's a handful to get to the ground, but for a host of reasons, game flow and everything else, he has 4 straight games in which he's been held under 70 yards. I think they want to feed him. They want him to be a central part of what they do here. It's a dangerous way to make a living to let your quarterback carry it 29 times. I certainly think Sims will carry it, but not 29 times. I think Relief Brown. They want him to have a game,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna go with Relief Brown. So finally, prop question number 3. All right. Now, we talked in the preview about the red zone. That's a critical area that you want to pay attention to in this game. It could be a slight advantage for West Virginia. Arizona State offensively, their red zone touchdown percentage, once they reach the red zone, is last in the Big 12. Only 48% of the time does the Arizona State offense reach the end zone once it gets to the red zone. West Virginia's defense holds the opposition to a touchdown and only allows 52% of the time to reach the end zone. That's second best in the Big 12. Potential advantage there. So, question number 3. Will the WVU defense hold the Arizona State offense to a red zone touchdown rate under 50%?
Yeah. I think they will, and partially because I think most or maybe even all of Arizona State scores may come from with outside the red zone. I think they're susceptible to giving up the big play in the pass game, which I don't know how many of those we're going to see in this game. I think I had the number down. I think Jeff Sims is like 8 of 26 when throwing beyond the sticks. So much of that's going to have to be yak, but yeah, I think they'll bow up and they'll limit them to a field goal or two, and then any other scores may come outside the 20. So yeah, I'll go under or hold them, I guess.
I'm going to say yes too, and here's my reasoning for doing so. As bad as that Arizona State number has been at 48%, it's actually inflated a little bit by their non-league competition. When you get them in Big 12 play, the number drops even further. It plummets to 38% touchdown rate, which is 127th in the country against conference competition. So tough for me to say yes. And just being optimistic, I think it's critical that West Virginia has to do this to have a chance. It's not that Arizona State won't be in the red zone. It'd be shocking if they're not, or it'd be really bad news if they're not, for the reason that you just said. Bunch of big plays and they don't need to get there. But I'm going to say yes for that reason. West Virginia has swelled up in some critical times, especially as of late in the red zone. That's kind of the one thing that we've done somewhat well all year, with a level of consistency in swelling up in the red zone and pushing teams away either outright or in many cases holding them to a field goal. So I'll say yes, they'll hold Arizona State under 50%. So we both agree with that. So there's this week's props.
I think even to add a little bit more onto it, I don't know how much Arizona State's going to want to throw the ball in the red zone with Sims, but assuming they do it a little bit, I might even go and call for an interception. I mean, he's been a little turnover prone throughout his career. He's thrown 30 interceptions or something to 33 touchdowns in his career.
Turnover worthy plays, 46 turnover worthy plays in his career. And I will remind people, I said this in the preview, in the red zone, West Virginia must hold the edge. With the more tape I watch on Arizona State, the more they attack the perimeter, especially with Jeff Sims in the game. They love to attack the perimeter and test your edge. So make certain that we're holding that edge.
Fighting through the blocks.
When they have had success, that's how they've done it.
Yeah, and we've seen teams at times pick on West Virginia's corners out there, just can't get through the blocks at times. So that's going to be a big part of it as well. So there you have it, our picks for this week's game, and that's going to do it. We'll put a bow on this episode and for the week here on ITG. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button here on our page at In the Gun Podcast. Make sure to go back, watch the preview. Wes, Jed, and Big O broke things down for you. We also have barbecuing with the beer truck earlier this week. We got one more of those left as well, which will return in 2 weeks after the bye week. So that's going to do it for us. For Jed, I'm Schuyler Callihan, and the last thing we ask of you is to be in ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WV football podcast. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you here in a few days. You've been In the Gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.